With Emily away at music school, our home in Willowbrook felt quieter. I missed her energy, her laughter, and the way she filled the house with her singing, but I knew she was where she needed to be, pursuing her dreams in the city. I tried to focus on my own goals, diving into my studies at trade school and working part-time jobs to help support my family. Trade school was challenging, but I loved it. I finally felt like I was on the path that was meant for me. Learning the intricacies of carpentry, I found a deep satisfaction in the craft. The smell of fresh wood, the sound of tools shaping materials into something new, and the sense of accomplishment when a project was finished, it all felt right. I often thought of my father while I worked, knowing that I was carrying on the tradition he had taught me. Despite my love for the craft, balancing school, work, and responsibilities at home wasn't easy. My father's health continued to decline, and my mother was stretched thin, trying to care for him and keep everything running smoothly. I did what I could to help, but there were times when it all felt overwhelming. Still, we pushed through, determined to make the best of our situation. One evening, after a particularly long day, my father called me into his room. He was lying in bed, looking more frail than I had ever seen him, but his eyes still held that same spark of determination I had always admired. "John," he said, his voice weaker than usual, "I want you to know how proud I am of you. You've grown into a fine young man, and I know you'll do great things." I tried to hold back my emotions as I sat beside him. "Thanks, Dad. I wouldn't be here without you," he smiled, though it was tinged with sadness. "I've taught you everything I know, but now it's your turn to make your own way. Don't be afraid to take risks, to follow your heart. And remember, it's not just about what you do, but how you do it. Take pride in your work and always do your best." I nodded, feeling the weight of his words. "I will, Dad. I promise." We sat in silence for a while, just enjoying each other's company. I didn't know it at the time, but that was one of the last real conversations I would have with him. A few weeks later, he passed away peacefully in his sleep. It was a devastating loss for our family. His funeral was a somber affair, attended by friends and neighbors who had known him for years. As we laid him to rest, I felt a deep emptiness inside, but also a sense of responsibility. My father had been the backbone of our family, and now it was up to me to step into that role. Life after my father's passing was difficult. My mother was heartbroken, and it took everything I had to keep things together. I continued with my trade school and work, but I often found myself questioning if I was doing enough. I wanted to honor my father's memory to make him proud, but I wasn't sure if I was on the right path. Around this time, Emily came back home for a visit. She had been doing well at music school, but she knew she needed to be with us during this difficult period. Seeing her again brought some joy back into our lives, and we spent many evenings talking about our father, sharing memories and stories that kept his spirit alive. One night, Emily and I sat by the fireplace, reminiscing about our childhood. "Remember how Dad used to take us fishing by the lake?" she asked, smiling at the memory. I nodded. "Yeah, he always seemed so patient, even when we didn't catch anything." Emily laughed softly. "He was patient with everything. He always believed in us, Even when we didn't believe in ourselves, her words struck a chord with me. "You're right," I said, thinking about how much my father had shaped who I was. "I just hope I can live up to his expectations." "You will," Emily said, placing a hand on my shoulder. "You already are. He wouldn't want you to doubt yourself. He'd want you to keep going, to keep building the life you want." Her encouragement gave me the strength I needed to push through the doubts and uncertainties. I realized that my father's legacy wasn't just about the skills he had passed down to me. It was about the values he had instilled in me: hard work, integrity, and perseverance. I decided then and there that I would continue to pursue my dreams, not just for myself, but for him as well. With renewed determination, I threw myself into my work at trade school. I took on more complex projects, challenging myself to learn new techniques and improve my skills. My instructors noticed my dedication, and I began to earn their respect as a talented and hardworking student. I also started to take on small carpentry jobs in the community, building furniture and doing repairs. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Emily, too, returned to her studies with a newfound sense of purpose. She knew that our father had been proud of her, and she was determined to make the most of the opportunities she had. Her performances at school became even more impressive, and she began to attract the attention of some important people in the music industry. As time went on, life slowly started to find a new rhythm. My mother, though still grieving, began to find comfort in the routine of daily life. She threw herself into her work and found solace in tending to the garden that my father had loved. Emily and I stayed in close contact, supporting each other as we navigated the challenges of our respective paths. One day I received an unexpected offer. A local carpenter, Mr. Harris, who had been in the business for over 30 years, approached me with a proposition. He was getting older and wanted to retire, but he didn't have anyone to take over his workshop. He had seen my work and was impressed by my dedication and skill. He offered to sell me his workshop at a reduced price, with the understanding that I would continue to serve the community as he had. I was stunned. This was the opportunity I had been waiting for, but it also came with a lot of responsibility. I didn't want to rush into anything, so I discussed it with my mother and Emily. They were both incredibly supportive, encouraging me to take the leap and follow my dreams. After much thought, I decided to go for it. I used my savings, along with a small loan, to purchase the workshop. It was a modest place, but it had everything I needed to get started. I renamed it Parker's Woodworks in honor of my father, and with that, I officially started my own business. The early days were tough. I had to juggle finishing my studies, managing the workshop, and finding clients. But with each project, I gained more confidence and began to build a reputation for quality craftsmanship. Word spread, and soon I was getting more orders than I could handle. It was exhausting, but I loved every minute of it. Running the workshop gave me a sense of purpose that I hadn't felt in a long time. I was finally doing what I loved, and I knew my father would have been proud. The work was demanding, but it was also incredibly rewarding. Each piece I crafted was a testament to the skills my father had taught me, and I took pride in knowing that I was carrying on his legacy. Emily's career was also taking off. She had started performing at larger venues and had even recorded a demo that was getting some attention from record labels. She was on the verge of something big, and I couldn't have been happier for her. We talked often, sharing our successes and struggles, and our bond remained as strong as ever. But just when it seemed like everything was falling into place, life threw another challenge our way. One evening, I received a call from Emily. She was in tears, her voice shaking as she told me that our mother had been diagnosed with a serious illness. The doctors weren't sure how much time she had left, but they advised us to prepare for the worst. The news hit me like a ton of bricks. I couldn't believe it. After everything we had been through, this felt like too much to bear. But there was no time to wallow in despair. Emily and I knew we had to be strong for our mother, just as she had been strong for us all these years. We both took time off from our respective work to be with her. Emily came home from the city, and I cut back on my work at the workshop. We spent as much time with our mother as we could, making sure she knew how much we loved her. Despite her illness, she remained as strong and loving as ever, always more concerned about us than herself. As the weeks turned into months, our mother's condition worsened. It was heartbreaking to watch, but we did our best to make her comfortable and to create as many happy memories as we could in the time we had left. We knew she was proud of us, and that gave us some comfort. Eventually, the day came when we had to say goodbye. Our mother passed away peacefully, surrounded by the family she had dedicated her life to. Losing her was devastating, but it also brought Emily and me even closer together. We knew that we had to carry on, to live our lives in a way that would honor the sacrifices our parents had made for us. In the months that followed, I threw myself back into my work at the workshop. It was a way to keep myself busy too.